Mainly, but I have a sense of deja of this. I really wish that the voice of Wendy McLean was still here, and the voice of Richie Haynes. Between mid-1989, Richie Haynes and I, on the floor of Parliament, started to warn then the LP government about the dangers of printing money to try to sustain and sustainable fiscal position. This is what it would make the charge against printing of money Parliament of the national, which against the NDP. And what happened? The government ignored us, increased the graph from 10 to 17.5%, and Barbados' reserve plummeted to minus $2 million by September 19, leading requirement that draconian measures, including the 8% wage cut, had to be put in place to be able to counteract what has been done. We therefore have a recent experience in Barbados where it is crystal clear that large-scale printing of money by the government of Barbados can, in fact, put severe pressure on the country's reserve and put the spectre of a devaluation into play as a possible policy. And I say that we are on this, at the start of a slippery slope, where this is once again being practiced by democratic party administration. And in the interest of the welfare of the people of this country, and in the interest of the stability of Barbados, we are urging that we come out from this slippery slope. I will give you questions.
One of the policies which this current government used in the 90s was to reduce the public service. When you say that some of the measures that they are undertaking is probably to avoid unavoidable in terms of
the notion that the government is just maintaining public sector employment is not going up with what they put in the estimates. The government budgeted in the estimates this year for a 19% increase in the public sector payroll in the context of a public sector wage freeze. Now, that is an effective wage freeze in the public sector, or wage freeze is clear. There has been no increase in public sector wages since the last wage settlement expired in March 2010. There seems to be no evidence of any intention to have a wage settlement that increases wages. How does the government budget for a 90% increase in temporary employment in circumstances where there is a wage freeze? What has happened is that the government has been involved in many respects. What they call the Make Work program, in large measure for the benefit of its supporters. And a lot of our fiscal problem is because that I'm trying to spoke to this in the past. I want to re-emphasize what he had said. When you get into a recession, governments can pursue what is called counter-cyclical fiscal policy. Stimulate the economy by stimulating public spending. The typical way that you do that is by stimulating capital expenditures. What this government, after that, when the recession ends, you can then come up with a posture of increased capital expenditure about the normal. What this government has done really is not that. It has expanded the payroll, and not only is direct employment, but statutory. The reason why you have these increases in statutory roles is that a large proportion of the subventions to statutory roles are not paid, and some institutions have been bloated. So it gives a kind of a sanctity to a policy that should not be sanctified. Where you see, we're doing this maybe to maintain employment. The government really has started to bloat the profits. And here, a large part of problems in this country is that the government of this country has set out to make Barbadians pay for its political program. A lot of government's expenditures are really not intended to diversify this economy or to build the economy, but to do things to try to ensure the salient political popularity of a bankrupt government. We now have to tolerate the nonsense of having to pay for a football competition in circumstances where the same people who must pay for this football competition, sponsored by the government, are having difficulties paying for the electricity in our bills. And that's what I call asking the public to pay for a political program. A lot of the things that the government has done, the new expenditures, constituency councils, summer camps, and whatever else. It's not to broaden the base of the party's economy, to build its economy, but it's trying to use public resources to give the Democratic Labour Party a political edge. The use of our taxpayers' money to pay people like Harry Henry, a development without precedent in this country. It's part of what I call asking the Barbadian people to pay for the political program of the Democratic Labour Party. And we are in this mess, not because of the deliberate international recession, but because of deliberate decision by the government that in true Democratic Labour Party tradition will not allow the Democratic Labour Party as adversary to commit political suicide. But it must never happen, because once you start this business for large scale printing of money by the central bank to finance fiscal debts and to do it on a sustained basis, this country will not be able to maintain the value of the balance. Consider what would happen in Barbados if every Barbadian was to be able to get $1 million of printed money from the central bank. You know what would happen? There will be so much addition to the spending power that does not come from the production of goods and services that each of those dollars invest. Financing the deficit from savings. Savings come from income generated from goods and services being produced. So, but financing it from printing money has a different thing. And that's where we are. I must believe in it that I am really outraged that a government central bank can have a press conference. He knows that this has happened and does not take the people of this country in his company. This cannot continue.
What is happening like that? You know, stop short of coming out and saying that the library is politically compromised. We talk central bank, but I want a definitive statement. Do you believe that Mr. Work is politically compromised? If the answer is yes, what will or can the opposition do to impress upon the people that he is politically compromised and should be removed?
Let me put it this way. I am represented by the people of St. Peter, and I do things in my constituency for which I have fundraising event under the auspices of the St. Peter Development Fund. I've had fundraising activities, but I would not know what it would be to have a government and central bank of Barbados at a fundraising activity under my auspices to raise funds for the St. Peter Development Fund. I've seen a photograph of Dr. Warren at a fundraising activity called the Poor Families First, which is a political fund that was created and managed by David Thompson to do in St. John the very same thing that my St. Peter Development Fund does in St. Peter. Now, I ask you, I give it the facts. I only give the facts. Can Dr. Warren shield himself from the accurate restriction of getting himself tangled up in partisan politics when he does not avoid the invitation to attend a partisan political function as a supporter of it?
Well, are you going to call on him to resign?
Well, I have already before called upon him to resign. But I must tell you, I'm not calling upon. I've said that I believe that the Prime Minister must intervene in this matter because he has a Minister of Finance who is gloriously incompetent, having as an accomplice a governor of the central bank who has gone forward. When the central bank governor has the Department of Statistics, Information and Employment published on their website, and then they're taken down to be supplanted by information that he has divined. Because I don't tell that it is divine. That there's no survey that he has done that is comparable to the scientific survey that is done every quarter by the Department of Statistics. They do a survey. And this survey, as far as internationally accepted methodology, it draws upon statistical techniques and theories that are accepted by statisticians all over the world. So that you have unemployment statistic that has been arrived at by the Department of Government that under Chapter 192, first schedule, Section 9 of it says that that is responsibility of the Statistics. Give you an unemployment statistic based upon that methodology, following its statutory duty in law, to be supplanted by something that is, to say is a fiction, is to glorify it. Because it is something that he says that he has manufactured by talking to 30 large companies. Of course, as you know, the employment in Barbados is generated by small and medium companies. And what did the large company tell him? That they did tell him, Dr. World, that they reduced their employment by 10%. Because to work from 10 to get necessarily that employment has increased by 10%. So when he talked to the large company, they tell him that they have cut staff by 10%. Because they want to companies have done so. And also that he has had feedback from this and feedback from that. And we are now to accept that a man of his training will ignore a methodology that is known and accepted by the international community to supplant it by something of his imagination. Sure. Well, I believe that he is now becoming reliant upon his imaginations for his facts. At the time then, he walked seriously from the government and said, banging on his point. I had an attitude of when government great gentlemen and stood facing that face. Happily, the United States of America, no matter what you say about the leadership of the United States of America, they say we have an unemployment problem. We are going to face it, and we're going to fix it. What do we have in Barbados? A government is centralized. It finds that the statistic generated by the methodology that been used from 1975 and is internationally respected, that the statistic is, in his judgment, an inconvenient truth. I rather advise the government that these are the facts. We will face it and fix it. He is now trying to shield the government from what really will become the next line of discussion, because the significance of what Dr. World is seeking to do has to do with the fact that the government said the more telling Barbados accept these harsh policies because they are all intended to stop unemployment from rising. And therefore, if unemployment appears to have risen, it will be a concession that the government's harsh policies have been to no avail and has not worked. And that is why Dr. World and others apparently seem to be motivated by shielding our eyes from the truth.